Hi, I'm Stephen King, CEO of GrowthForce, and welcome to Put Your Numbers to Work. I'm really excited today because I'm here with my very own Vistage chair, Robin Stanaland. Welcome to GrowthForce, Robin.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm delighted to be here for your first podcast.
I know, right? Robin is a 13 years of being a Vistage chair. Am I one of your first members?
You actually were one of my first recruits.
I
yes,
know.
You were.
I was so excited when I met you.
We've been together for a long time.
13 years now.
Yep.
And I have my 15-year Vistage award right here behind you. Yep. You're also a 6-time Star Award winner, right? That means you're the top 20 Vistage chairs out of what?
700 or so?
700 chairs around the United States.
Yeah. And
6 years in a row you've come out on top. Well, it's no surprise to anybody who's in Vistage Group 812.
Oh, thank you.
Because we know we've got the best chair. And I'm excited because, you know, your Vistage chair relationship is as important a relationship as I have, except outside my family.
Yeah.
And so we spent a lot of time together, and I really enjoy the lessons that you've got with all the other members you work with. And I was interested in just learning a little bit about the other groups you serve and the companies in those groups.
So I've got 5 Vistage groups.
Wow.
And there's a very wide range of types of companies and size of companies. So anywhere from a couple $1 million a year in revenue to $1 billion a year in revenue.
A billion with a B.
A billion with a B, yeah. So all from plastic resin distribution companies to logistics and trucking, flooring companies, moving companies, accounting companies.
Nonprofits.
Nonprofits, all over the board.
So what kind of issues do they have?
You know, it's interesting, regardless of the size of the company, from the $1 billion guy to the $2 million guy, they all have a couple of the same issues over and over again. One being people, of course. Everybody's going to have people issues.
Yep.
But the other is really understanding their data and managing their businesses from the numbers. It's surprising to me how many CEOs don't do that.
It is surprising, right? Do you think it's fear? Like you don't want to see the bad news? Or is it
I don't know so much that it's fear or an understanding, a fear of that they don't understand what they're telling them more than anything. I'm not sure that it's not that they don't want to look at it. A lot of companies get to be fairly large without a CFO. So they may or may not even have a controller. You'd be surprised at the size of companies. I've seen $50 million companies without a CFO.
But they're just good at sales and service and product.
Absolutely. They're good at what they deliver.
And so that lack of understanding is that, what does that mean? What's the impact of that on the business? I mean, they got to $50 million.
They're not making data-driven decisions. Okay. And that's what's been so amazing about what you did for our group. It was such a gift that you gave to us. I don't know if you remember or not, we had this, I'm sure you do. We had this speaker and he was speaking on different CEO tools you could use in your business, but one of which was really tracking your KPIs, how to track them, and using a trailing 12 to do so because it gave you a much better picture. It kind of normalized the financial picture. And I remember you specifically that day that the light bulb just went off for you. And you got it. Obviously, you're the numbers guy in the room. But you went away and took that and created a scorecard for your company. And you came back the next month when we were reporting on our check-in. And you had this amazing KPI chart that everybody was jealous of. And you started explaining what was going on in your company based on what you were looking at on that chart. And everybody was like, we got to get one of those. So you created a template for them. And so much so that I think a lot of the guys, they probably still pay you to create that, to generate that for them.
We now do it for free.
You do?
Yeah.
Even for all the members that used to pay you?
Yeah, and for when I do Vistage speaking, or we create one for every prospect that we meet, because we've just automated the process so much, it's easy to do.
I didn't know you do that for the prospects.
Yeah.
I knew you started speaking to Vistage groups and that you're doing that as part of, what a gift. Because in my other CEO groups, that's not yours, you did that for us. And
so what does it mean?
Oh my gosh, it has meant that they are able to make better decisions, which ultimately gets them better results in their business. Just like with one of our members in your group specifically, they were able to look at what was going on with their revenue and net income and able to make some pricing decisions based on those charts and your recommendation.
I remember that discussion.
Yeah.
And it was hard.
It was hard.
Because you're really dealing with the fact that they weren't making money, and everything they tried, cutting costs, investing in sales and marketing, diversifying product lines, wasn't getting them there. So what did we do?
We recommended they raise their prices, which they hadn't done in like, was it 7 years or 7 or 10 years? And it's a husband and wife team. And the husband's not in our group, but the wife is. And so we recommended they raise prices.
That was a year ago December.
A year ago December. So they raised their prices. But then, a surprise to all of us, they got a new competitor in the market that came in at a really low price.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even think they were making any profit at the price those people were selling at.
Right.
And our member was nervous because her husband was telling her that her Vistage group gave her some bad advice.
There were some bad words. There were some very bad words that he used. You blankety blank Vistage group told us to increase prices, and now all my competition stole a third of our business.
And do you remember him saying, I drive by their office on my way to work every day and their parking lot is empty.
And I've got 3 trucks sitting idle that I'm paying a lease on.
Yep.
And he's like, what's wrong with you people?
He was mad.
And he's got big arms.
Yeah. Remember he walked in, he was red-faced and kind of ready to show us that we were wrong.
But what happened was really interesting what the outcome was, wasn't it?
Yeah. We said, let's get the P&Ls last year to this year and let's take a look. And while revenue was down, net income was way up.
Way up.
And if you remember, he was not looking at your KPI charts.
Right.
I'm not even sure that she was looking as closely because you brought it up in the meeting. What's this about? You knew what it was, or at least you hoped you knew what it was.
Right.
But when we pulled up those P&Ls and we showed him,
he couldn't believe it. They went from a loss for the year before to making a couple $100,000 profit in the first 6 months of the new year.
Yeah.
And I remember what he said was, how is that possible? Half my trucks, 3 of my trucks are not running, and I'm paying for those trucks.
Yep.
We said was because you were losing money on every run that you made.
Yeah.
You can't make it up in volume if you're losing money.
Right. And when we showed him that, and we made him understand that the competition is not making money.
Right.
It was only a matter of time before they couldn't do that anymore. They'd be out of business. And now they've had to get 3 more trucks. They're so busy they can't keep up with the work.
I know.
Because those other guys couldn't deliver.
And what I really find most fascinating is that whenever I see a business with cash flow problems, it's always driven by they're not pricing right. Because when the husband said to the wife, she's like, we're making money, she turned and says, I've been telling you, we have money in the bank for the first time. Why do you think we have money in the bank? Because we're making money.
Yeah.
And I think most business owners don't understand that if you got cash flow problems, it's going to be because of pricing.
Right. Yep.
So in your 5 groups, and you're looking at the scorecards, what kind of questions do they have about reading the scorecards and using them? I mean, what's the mindset of a CEO when they start to get a scorecard? Kind of opens up a whole new world for them, and that just raises a lot more issues, right?
It does, and which is why I love that you're going out and talking to the CEOs in all these Vistage groups. And I know with my other CEO group, I wish you could be in there every month like you are for our group, because they come up with questions all the time.
Right, like what?
And in our group, you're like so quick to answer them. One of the biggest is, what's this trailing 12 mean? Why is that better than looking at just my month over month? And while you talk about that in your talk, they need to be reminded of that.
We in 13 years at Vistage, we have spoken about this probably 15 times, right? Every time a new member comes in.
Every time a new member.
But it's hard. It's not, you can't hear it once.
Yeah.
So the trailing 12 months tells you the total for the 12 prior months, right? And that dot on the chart is an annualized total looking backwards. And when you look at a trend over a year, at the end of the year, you've got 2 years worth of data. The 12 years ending at the beginning of the current month, the current year, and then what the last year has done. And the reason that's so important is because it eliminates seasonality.
Right.
It eliminates
those big spikes.
All those big spikes that are going to inevitably happen in every business. And it's particularly important for any business that doesn't have a really strong accounting department. If you don't have accruals at the end of the month, if you're recording revenue based on when you got paid, or you're just not matching the timing of the income expenses, one individual month isn't going to be accurate. And so you end up running the company based on how much cash is in the bank.
And that is what a lot of them do.
I know. It's crazy.
It's surprising.
Surprising, because after you run payroll and the cash is gone, your bank balance is different.
Yeah. But to that point on the trailing 12, so you did something new this year with your KPI charts.
What?
You put a trailing 3 months.
Trailing 3 months, yeah.
So tell me, that's something I've been getting a lot because of that change.
Right.
So tell us what's the difference? Why is that so important?
So version 3.0 of our KPI toolkit, we added trailing 3 months because what it is, it's the same thing as trailing 12, except as you would expect, it's the last 3 months. Mm-hmm. And what that does is it's like a leading indicator of what is going to happen in your trailing 12. The problem, trailing 12 is the most important way to measure everything. Mm-hmm. The problem is, though, it's a 2-year trend. It takes a long time to change a 2-year trend.
Yeah.
So you can't really tell, okay, things are going well, but what is this going to look like in the future? Whereas the trailing 3 months, it's a leading indicator. So if your trailing 3 months is higher than your trailing 12 months, your trailing 12 months is going to continue to go up.
Okay.
If trailing 3 months goes down, then your trailing 12 months is going to go down. And you can figure out, what I always tell people is you want to use these scorecards to figure out where should you focus your time. If your trailing 3 is going down, trailing 12 on revenue, okay, I got to look at the pipeline. I got to look at leads. I got to look at sales.
Okay.
If it's going down on gross profit, then I got to look at my above the line costs. I got to look at the operations. Am I being as efficient because things are getting worse? And if it's going down on net income, then I got to look at my overhead, my below the line costs.
Okay. I think we need a cheat sheet for that.
All right.
More work for you.
So once they're getting the scorecards, right? So you got a couple of groups who are using our KPI template.
Yeah.
And how do they use it? What do they use it for?
Well, they use it for decision making. They use it to just know what's going on in their business. Mm-hmm. Data-driven decisions are so important, and that's really been the big shift that I'm trying to get my members to make.
And why is that so important?
Because most of them are entrepreneurs, right? And entrepreneurs are people who take risks. They like change. They like shiny things and squirrels, and they can be distracted very easily to go to the new thing as opposed to the nitty-gritty of the running the day-to-day operations. Mm-hmm. And making sure process and procedure, and that's why I think it's so important, because it's good looking, it's quick, it gets to the point of what they really need to see, and it really helps them make those data-driven decisions. At least ask the questions, and that's how we use it in our group, really. I mean, your Vistage group is really designed to question your decisions. Mm-hmm. We're not there to tell you what to do or how to do it, but it's just to question you so you'll think. And that's what that KPI tool does. Mm-hmm. Is it just gets them thinking. And when we're using it as a group, we can ask questions about it, because I can't tell you how many times someone says, oh, everything's going great, but we're looking at that. And we can say, really? Because, I'm seeing a trend here and you're not talking about it. So something must be going on. And most of the time they don't know what it is, but it causes them to go ask their financial person more questions and to go deeper.
So the decision really at the highest level is, where do you focus your energy?
That's right.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So are there any, I'm not in the other group, so what are the kinds of questions they're asking that,
One of the questions has come up a lot, and I haven't memorized the answer, but you always have it so eloquently, is why is sales commissions not in cost of goods sold?
That's a great question. So, because cost of goods sold implies sales, right?
You're and they're saying I gotta have the salesperson to sell it.
The cost of the sale, right? Why is that not included above the line in cost of goods sold? Because it's overhead. Because none of your customers are paying you for the work that the sales rep did. The sales rep is creating an opportunity for someone else to deliver value. Mm-hmm. The sales rep's not delivering value, right? They're queuing up the work. The cost of goods sold account only includes the direct expenses, the direct labor and the direct materials that are what the customer's paying for. That's the easiest way to think about it. Mm-hmm. So if you could not have that customer service, you couldn't earn any income unless you paid for this work, that goes above the line. Nobody's paying for a sales rep unless the sales rep also is an account exec and actually
manages the account.
They're delivering services and their sales rep. Then they split the costs above and below line.
Okay.
But what you're asking I think what your group's asking is, well, don't you need to calculate the sales expenses in order to figure out what the real profit is?
Yeah.
And so Gross profit is gross. It's the highest amount of profit margin that you've got. That's just the direct labor and the direct costs, the direct materials. But what you want to do is take your gross profit, subtract your sales commissions to get you contribution margin.
That's it. That's the thing most don't understand is contribution.
Yeah. So what is contribution margin? Contribution margin is like the net contribution that each customer contributes to pay for overhead and contributes to generating a profit. And so you take your gross profit, your highest lower profit, you subtract out the variable indirect expenses, the variable overhead. So what does that mean? It's overhead is going to be your sales, your IT, your rent. If you have any of those costs that are variable, meaning they only happen if you had that client, like a sales commission, or if you had to rent an office for that client. Well, you wouldn't have the rent if you didn't have the client. Then you subtract it from gross profit to get to contribution. And that shows you the real profit that you make that will allow you to contribute to bottom line.
Seems pretty simple.
It is.
I know a lot of people that don't understand that.
Well, I think management accounting overall and management reporting is not how CPAs, and I'm a CPA for 35 years. We haven't been trained that way. We've been trained to look backwards, right? This is about looking forward. So, and also seeing it in a picture. Most of the CEOs, they don't want to look at rows and columns.
Picture makes a big difference. Those charts are so nicely done.
Yeah. So what else do you see in your groups when they're looking at it?
I think one of the questions I've also been asked is, why is it that we're tracking net income? Why are we looking at a KPI for net income? Shouldn't it be EBITDA?
Depends. So EBITDA is earnings before income taxes, depreciation, and amortization, right? So if you have, EBITDA is a great placeholder for cash flow. If you have if you buy companies or you're making big investments in equipment or plant and property or manufacturing, you're going to have a lot of depreciation, right? If you buy a business, or buy some software, you might have a lot of amortization. Those are non-cash expenses. So EBITDA is totally the right way to go instead of net income, or in addition to, when your depreciation and amortization is a big number. Because then at EBITDA is basically a placeholder for cash. But if you don't have a lot of depreciation or a lot of amortization, then net income's better.
Okay, that makes sense.
Good. So what other issues have you got in your group? What kind of financial questions come up?
So in the other group, a couple of the additional questions I've heard them bring up since we've implemented your scorecard is, why are my actuals going up and my trailing 12s going down? So
the monthly trend looks good. But the trailing 12 months looks bad. Okay, that's a good one, because the trailing 12 months is the one you really need to pay attention to. So what does the actual going up show you? It means that the beginning of the year was lower than the end of the year. So the numbers are look like they're getting better. But it could be just an artificial, a month or two. You're a really good month in November and a really bad month in February. The trend is going to look good, but it doesn't really show you the true economics of the business. Whereas the trailing 12 months is going to show you the trend over 2 years. I just saw this. I was speaking in Boca Raton, Florida this week.
Oh, how nice.
I know, right? In February, it's always nice. And there was a member who had that exact situation.
Really?
Yeah, and so what happened was they benefited from the hurricane. So big hurricane hits Florida, 2017, business goes up. They're evacuating in the business that help evacuate people, and their transportation business. And so they had a really good year in 2017. 2018, that business went away. And so they're over a 2-year period, their numbers were declining. However, so it was declining, down to the point where in January 2018, there was slow months. But in the last 2 or 3 months, they had some really nice revenue. So it looks like for 2018, they're in a trajectory up, but it wasn't, the whole year was performing worse than 2017. So that means if over a 2-year period, if the second year is worse, that trend is going to go down. And what most people don't understand on that trailing 12 months is the change from month to month represents the difference between the month that got added So we just finished January.
Okay.
We just add last month, and the month that got dropped off, January 2017.
I don't think they understand that.
Right. So if your trailing 12 months is going up, it means that the new month that you added is better than the month that went away.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes complete sense.
You mentioned people issues.
Yeah.
I think this is the most important, right? Human capital, if you get that right.
Yeah.
I mean, because what I say in my presentations is you need a financial management strategy and you need a human capital strategy. Just like if you want to lose weight, you need diet and exercise, right? So talk to me about some of the people issues that you see, you know.
I think right now, in with the unemployment the way it is, it's like what, 3.7% or something.
It's full employment.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you can get a job anywhere.
Right.
Turnover is really a big one for my members and clients in general. Turnover is a big one. There's a lot of costs that go into that, right?
It's fascinating because, you know, we're a data-driven company, right?
Yeah.
My number one metric in this company is employee turnover.
Really?
We everybody in the company knows it, right? We want clients for life, and we want employees to build a career here, because we're all run by tribal knowledge. When a member of the tribe leaves, so does the knowledge.
Yeah.
So, what do you advise them?
Well, they don't all have great scorecards like you have, right? So it's really hard for them to know when's the right time to hire. You know, how do I analyze the sales process and know that I got to hire ahead of the curve or in time? I don't want to hire before, I don't hire too late. Depends on the cycle for hiring and the cycle for sales. And without scorecards, which is why those that use them in our group really have a competitive advantage over their competitors.
Yeah, we're in a client of insperity, right? So I learned a lot about human capital from them. And the one thing I learned is that the single biggest reason why people have turnover is because they hired wrong in the first place. They made a bad hire. And the reason they make a bad hire is because they're in a rush. They needed somebody who could fog a mirror. Yep. Right? They had the job.
And they take the first person that comes along.
And if you don't have to give 2 weeks notice, you're more attractive to me than somebody who does. That's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Because you end up hiring for skills and not behaviors or cultural fit. Where if it takes 8 to 12 weeks to hire somebody. So you need a leading indicator so that 8 to 12 weeks in advance you can tell when do you need to hire, when you need a new person, so you can start the process early enough before you need them. And if you end up, you know, the leading indicators are sales and marketing. If you end up that the sales and marketing, the sales don't come through, then you just don't make the offer.
Yeah.
But you got to get started early on. So
you got to be proactive about it. And sales and recruiting is essential.
Yeah. So that's what I like the sales thing. What's your earliest indicator, right? What's the beginning of the sales process? And if your sales cycle is 8 to 12 weeks or longer, you should have no problem knowing when you're going to hire somebody. The second thing I put in there is what's the most predictable metric, meaning that's the one that it's money in the bank. I know that if we are going to get a proposal out the door, 50% of those proposals are going to close. So I can predict, I got a 30 to 60 day sales cycle. I can predict 30 to 60 days from now how much new business I've got, which means I'm going to be able to hire.
So imagine those people that don't track that.
Yeah, you got to.
It's just.
I can't imagine, to be honest with you. I don't know any other way.
I know you can't. Numbers guy. You would be amazed at how many people don't have that data.
Right.
In my other world, outside of Vistage sharing, I sell businesses.
Right. I know.
Business intermediary. So
you're trying to help businesses exit.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so you get a call from someone to come in and they want to sell their business and they think their business is worth generally more than it is. But you go in and they don't really have any key indicators. They don't know what drives sales. They don't know what drives growth. They don't really have the right accounting processes, the right reporting to be able to take that and market it and go out and find a good financial buyer.
So what's the impact? What does that mean?
A whole lot less money for them.
Really?
Example, I took someone, one of our friends asked me to take a look at their business, and you could take it to market today and they could get $2 million for the business. But if they just made a few of these changes that we've talked about today, that business is worth $12 million.
Really?
And so they just need to wait. They need to wait a couple of years and put some of these processes in place, and their bottom line.
So which levers? What's the specifics, the drivers that would increase the valuation of a company?
The drivers that are going to increase it obviously are the net income. The net income number is so important. So it's those expenses that they don't pay attention to. It's knowing what's driving the sales and being able to understand the leading indicators so that you can sell on that, right? So if you understand those, then you can go to market and be able to show the prospective buyer, hey, these are leading indicators that are driving our sales. This is where we're going to be. You can sell more on projections because you have the data to prove.
So you're saying that you can't just put numbers in a spreadsheet and expect a buyer to pay you on that?
Well, you can expect them to pay you, but they're going to know they're getting a really good deal, and you're not going to get anywhere near what your business is really worth.
But if you can track that historical trend,
yep.
then you can start to use that to increase it, justify an increased valuation going forward.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
And a lot more comfort level from the buyer's standpoint on what they're actually getting, and that it's sustainable. I mean, there's certain things about a business that make it more marketable, right? You have a business owner who is the only salesperson. They're the rainmaker. They're the guy that goes out there and talks to all the clients. That decreases your value because he doesn't have a sales engine, whether it be inbound sales or outbound sales, that operates without him. There's a lot of times, a lot of the businesses don't have set processes and procedures for how things are done. It's all in their head. It's all tribal knowledge. Without those documented and clear-cut, processes, it decreases the value. Without a net income, a lot of business owners live out of their business. You would be amazed at the things people pay for out of their businesses. And so getting those financials cleaned up so that when you do get them into these charts, it's real data. It's actual data.
And you also pierce the company veil, right? If you pay personal expenses out of your corporation, which means you don't have a limited liability in a corporation.
That's something I don't think that I know that these small business owners don't know that.
Yeah, so the books really have a legal implication as well as a business valuation.
That's right. Yeah, the World I Plan is really businesses that value around 20 million and under. And so in that world, that's primarily the type of business owners that you're dealing with when it comes to my business acquisition side.
That's fascinating. So how do you get ready for an exit? I mean, if you want to there's only three ways to what you can do with the business, right? You can run it till you die. You can sell it to your managers or your family, or you can sell it to a third party, right? So how do you get ready for that inevitable date of one of those three things happening?
Well, I think you have to do some of the stuff we've talked about. You need to have good financial measures in place. You need to have a sustainable operation that can run without you. You need to have a brand that isn't attached to you personally, so that when you leave, the new owner can be assured that the business will continue. And those things will help a lot in getting that business ready to sell. You need to have customers that are diverse. You can't have more than 10% of your revenue coming from one customer. A lot of small businesses have one customer who might make up 50% of their revenue. That's definitely a detractor of value. So I think if you can diversify your customer base, you can put processes and procedures in place, you can have a sales strategy and pipeline that doesn't involve you, and you have good, clean financials that have just business expenses in them. And if you have this KPIs that you guys do for businesses, I know when I am referred to a GrowthForce client to sell, I don't have any worries when it comes to the financial side. We have great reports. We have buyers who are confident in what we're giving them. It's very much helps. So any business owner having those makes their business more marketable.
You got audit ready work papers, right? So
due
diligence, you fly through due diligence.
That's right, because in this space, most people aren't auditing.
Right.
It's just not. You're not going to spend the money for that. So having your stuff, having clean financials really helps when it comes to due diligence.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So to that point, Stephen, on a lot of the companies I talk to, they'll have one customer who makes up so much of their revenue, and they think that that's their best customer.
Yeah.
And a lot of times a big company, and when those big companies are taking up that much of your mind share and your energy, and they usually have the lowest margins, and they are generally taking up most of your energy, and you think that, oh my gosh, I've got this big account, it's my pillar account, we've got to service them. But I think that there's ways to tell that it's not really a good client.
I have so many examples. I'm so glad you mentioned that because, we just had this with a client about a year and a half ago that came on board, and they were a 8-figure business IT company where Apple was their biggest account. They were really proud of Apple.
I bet. Sure, that's
who would want that, right?
Killer account.
And so they naturally think that your biggest account is your best account. And so we come in and we do our job costing, right? We set up, they had time tracking because they're in the IT business, and we connected the timesheets with the payroll, and we automated the process of allocating the labor costs based on how they spent their time, right? In Sperity and Intuit have that automated. And so we were able to show the labor cost for each of the jobs they did and all the work, the service items that they worked on. And we ran the profitability reports by customer, and Apple was barely breaking even.
I'm not surprised.
No, because they have clout, right?
Yeah, they can drive that cost.
They can drive that cost down. And what really was surprising was, and you see this a lot, they were using the most expensive people, right? The senior managers.
Sure, they want to be providing the best service to them.
And they're the biggest clients. So who gets the attention of the owner and the management team?
Yeah.
And what happened was, every business that has knowledge workers is short of people, right? It's people issues as our biggest issues.
Yep.
And so recruiting was the challenge. And so we came in and said, what you really need to do is look at firing your lowest margin clients and replacing them with these new high margin business that you're not getting to. And it took them a while. And I talk to business all the time. They say, fire clients? Are you crazy? I need the cash flow. I'm going to lose that monthly payment.
Yeah. And
what I say all the time is, your low margin clients are what's causing you to have cash flow problems.
So did you get them to fire Apple?
We did. And last year, I remember when I looked at the P&Ls, they made $1.5 million in profit 1 year later.
Oh my gosh.
Because they fired their lowest margin business and they replaced it with good money clients.
But without that management accounting and reporting, they wouldn't know it.
Job costing, time-driven, activity-based costing makes a really big difference.
Yeah. And so then how did they know where to, because this is a question I get a lot, then where do I spend my marketing and sales dollars? Now that I've gotten that client out of the way, I got to go sell some more. I got to find another client.
So I like to say you study the past to predict the future, right?
Okay.
Look at which of your marketing campaigns generated the most profits in the past. The biggest mistake I see in sales and marketing is that you measure the results based on sales, right? You think, I got a good salesperson, right? Generating a lot of sales. What you want to do is you want to measure the results based on how much profit they contributed. Because some people are selling commodities, right? If you got a 50% margin and you give a 10% discount, you got to sell 33% more business to get the same gross profit dollars.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is amazing.
Remember we processed that in
our
group?
That is an aha moment for everybody that hears it.
Everybody. I've got a great slide in my Vistage presentation on that. And so by figuring out, putting into the accounting system, it doesn't matter what accounting system you got it. If we serve QuickBooks or NetSuite, you put into the customer record, what lead source did each customer come from? What sales rep generated that sale? What industry was that client in? And now you run your client profitability reports by sales rep to figure out who's selling value and who's offering discounts, and just a commodity sales reps. You look at and this, Chief Outsiders is one of our clients, right? Art Saxby taught me this one. He said, can you put in a field into QuickBooks for lead source? And so what we did was every customer, we identified where did the customer come from. And in marketing, it's kind of fuzzy, right? Was it the website? Right? Was it a trade show? You do your best.
Yeah, marketing stuff.
But what we were able to do is we were able to run a profitability by lead source report. And in fact, there's a Vistage impact here, because a year ago, or 2 years ago, January, he emailed us and said, I got a bill from Vistage because, they're a platinum sponsor. It's a 6-figure invoice, and it's January. We're a partnership for tax purposes. So we distribute all our cash to the partners in December. I don't have 6 figures in the bank, so I'm going to pass on sponsoring Vistage. And what he said is, before I do that, though, can you tell me how much revenue did I get from sponsoring Vistage? And our team emailed back and said, yeah, but you're asking the wrong question. What question should he even ask?
How much profit?
How much profit did he get from that investment?
Yeah.
And he had a 4 times higher return from sponsoring Vistage than he did from anything else at the time. So he made that decision to continue to sponsor Vistage because instead of using his gut, I don't have any cash.
It's management reporting.
He's like, I almost didn't do that.
Yeah.
It's amazing. That's how you, if you got to go out now, you fired that biggest client, you got to make sure that the pipeline's filled. You make a data-driven decisions to study the past profits to figure out how to do it in the future.
Yeah. If they could all just do that, I'd be able to sell them.
Well, Robin, I love when I spend time with you, and I value our relationship, and I'm so happy you're my chair. We're just about out of time here today, but I know I got a lot out of it. I hope it was fun for you.
It was so much fun, and I learned some stuff I can take back to my members now.
Awesome.
So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming. I hope we get to do it again.
Me too.